Nikola Tesla is one of the most documented inventors in modern history. His patents are archived, his letters are preserved, his laboratory notebooks are still studied today. But for all of that documentation, one question was never asked during his lifetime and has only recently become possible to explore. Where did the Tesla family originally come from? The direction modern DNA research is pointing adds another layer to the story. Tesla was born in 1856 in the village of Smiljan in what is now Croatia, then part of the Austro-Hungarian military frontier, a region that had been one of Europe's most contested and repeatedly resettled borderlands for nearly 300 years. His father, Milutin Tesla, was a Serbian Orthodox priest, educated, disciplined, and deeply embedded in the religious and cultural life of the frontier community. His mother, Juka Mandic, came from a family of priests and craftspeople and was known locally for her remarkable memory. It was said she could recite entire books by heart and construct intricate household tools without formal instruction. Tesla's Serbian identity was documented, lived, and never publicly questioned. When he arrived in New York in 1884, nearly penniless and carrying letters of introduction, he listed his nationality as Serbian. That was the record. That was the story. Church documents confirmed it. The language confirmed it. The faith confirmed it. What no one examined in depth was how the Tesla family came to be in that region in the first place. The military frontier was not an organically settled territory. It was administered by the Habsburg Empire as a defensive buffer against Ottoman expansion. It was a deliberate geopolitical construction rather than a naturally evolved community. Beginning in the 16th century, the Habsburgs offered land grants, tax exemptions, and religious autonomy to displaced populations willing to settle along the frontier and serve as permanent military defenders. The offer drew waves of communities uprooted by Ottoman conquest, Serbs, Croats, Vlachs, and others who arrived across the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. They settled alongside one another in a region defined by constant movement, contested borders, and gradual cultural consolidation. Families adopted local languages. They aligned with dominant religious institutions, often Serbian Orthodoxy. Over generations, distinctions blurred and then faded. By the 19th century, many frontier families had little visible memory of where their ancestors had originally come from. The written record tracked faith and profession. It did not track deep origin. It did not ask where a family had been before their name first appeared in a parish register. It had no mechanism to record biological ancestry beneath adopted identity. The Habsburg administration needed settlers and soldiers. They did not need genealogists. Origin beyond loyalty and religious alignment was largely irrelevant to the state's purpose. Over time, everything else dissolved into the background. In 2019, genetic researchers working in collaboration with Balkan genealogical archives began a systematic study of Y chromosome haplogroups from historical figures with documented patrilineal descendants. The goal was to use modern genetic tools to trace deeper ancestry where written records ended. The Tesla family was included. Tesla himself had no children, but parish records identified collateral male line relatives, branches of the family that remained in the region and whose lineage could be traced with documented continuity. Two individuals with confirmed direct Tesla patrilineal ancestry provided DNA samples. The process was methodical. Researchers cross-referenced church registers, land records, and Habsburg administrative documents before accepting any candidate as a valid descendant. The sample size was small, as is common in historical genetic research, but provenance was treated as a requirement, not an afterthought. This type of study has been conducted on other European historical families. While not without limitations, the methodology has produced peer-reviewed findings strong enough to reshape understanding of well-documented lineages. The Tesla case was approached within that same framework. The Y chromosome profile that emerged did not fully match the expected cluster. Many ethnic Serbian men from the military frontier region carry haplogroups associated with South Slavic migration patterns, populations that moved into the Western Balkans from the Carpathian region during the 6th and 7th century CE as part of the broader Slavic expansion. That would have been the anticipated result for a Serbian Orthodox family deeply rooted in the frontier. Instead, the Tesla paternal markers suggested a somewhat different trajectory. They aligned more closely with populations historically associated with the Vlach diaspora, communities that moved through the Carpathian and Danubian corridors during the medieval period and gradually resettled throughout the Balkans as Ottoman expansion reshaped southeastern Europe's demographic landscape. The divergence was statistically noticeable. Researchers flagged it as requiring historical interpretation rather than dismissing it as noise. The Vlachs were not a marginal presence in medieval history. They were one of the most widespread and least fully understood populations in the Balkans, often semi-nomadic pastoralists speaking a Romance language related to Romanian and practicing Eastern Orthodoxy. They occupied a complex position in the region, ethnically distinct yet deeply integrated into surrounding societies. Byzantine chronicles mention them, medieval Serbian legal codes refer to them, Ottoman administrative records document their movements. They were visible when necessary and adaptable when survival required it.
Over centuries, many Vlach families intermarried with neighboring communities, adopted local languages, aligned with local religious institutions, and gradually ceased identifying separately. In many cases, assimilation was complete within a few generations. By the 18th and 19th centuries, families carrying Vlach ancestry might speak Serbian fluently, practice Serbian Orthodoxy devoutly, and bear surnames indistinguishable from their neighbors without any conscious awareness of earlier origins. They were not concealing anything, the memory had simply dissolved into the surrounding culture. What the Vlachs left behind was not always a clear documentary trail, it was often genetic. The Tesla paternal haplogroup appears consistent with populations that followed this trajectory, entering the military frontier with Vlach patrilineal ancestry, integrating into Serbian Orthodox life across generations, adopting language and identity fully, and eventually producing a priest, Milutin Tesla, whose public role embodied Serbian religious and cultural tradition. Nothing in the family's visible life would have suggested an alternate origin, not the name, not the faith, not the profession, not the language. The surface identity was Serbian in every practical sense. The deeper past may have been more layered. The surname Tesla offers an additional linguistic detail. The word refers to an adze, a woodworking tool. Variants of the term exist in both South Slavic and Vlach Romanian vocabulary, each inherited from earlier Latin layers introduced during Roman rule in the Balkans. The name alone proves nothing. Occupational surnames cross cultural lines easily, but alongside genetic data, it becomes another small piece in a larger pattern. Individually, such details carry limited weight. Together, they form a consistent direction. Tesla's maternal line tells a different story. Mitochondrial DNA tracing the direct female ancestry of the Mandic family shows markers associated with the ancient Dinaric substrate of the Western Balkans, one of the oldest detectable genetic layers in southeastern Europe. These maternal ancestors did not arrive in a medieval migration wave. They were already there. While populations moved, consolidated, and assimilated around them, the maternal line appears to reflect deep continuity in the Dinaric Alps region, stretching back beyond written history. The contrast between the two lineages echoes the contrast Tesla himself described between his parents. His father, structured, literate, embedded in formal religious hierarchy. His mother, intuitive, inventive, gifted with tools and memory without formal schooling. Tesla credited his inventive abilities to her in his memoirs. Whether or not such traits map genetically is speculative, but symbolically, the convergence is striking. Two different ancestral trajectories meeting in a frontier household in the mid-19th century and producing one of the most unconventional minds of the modern age. Researchers involved in these findings emphasize caution. No direct DNA sample exists from Tesla. The connection relies on collateral descendants. Haplogroup analysis is probabilistic, identifying likely population affiliations rather than certainties. Population overlaps complicate clean conclusions. The findings have not yet appeared in a peer-reviewed journal. The scientists present their work as a beginning, not a final verdict. Independent replication, larger sample sets, and further archival discoveries could refine or adjust the picture. But the divergence from the expected South Slavic cluster is measurable, and the historical record of Vlach integration into Serbian Orthodox frontier communities is well documented in Habsburg administrative records, church archives, and demographic research. The evidence stands not alone. Genetic signals, linguistic traces, and regional migration history intersect. What emerges is a story more layered than the simplified biography. Nikola Tesla was Serbian in language, faith, culture, and self-identification. He lived as Serbian, died as Serbian, and contributed to the world as Serbian. None of this revises that lived reality, but at the level of deep ancestry, beyond parish registers and national identity, the paternal line may have followed a path older and more complex than previously described. The immigrant inventor who gave America alternating current may have carried multiple historical currents within his own lineage. The standard biography was never false, it was simply focused on the final visible layer. And perhaps the larger question remains: how far back does any person's story truly go?